Welcome back to Out of Home Insider, the loudest voice in out of home. Today's guest is Will Haire, founder of Bellavix, an agency that works specifically with born online brands scaling in the Amazon ecosystem. We're going to talk about what the challenges are for brands trying to scale on Amazon, because as we offline media consultants are advising these born online brands with our channel, it's important for us to understand the challenges that they go through scaling their businesses online. So this is going to be a deep dive conversation into the Amazon ecosystem, what it means to be a seller, what it means to be a brand on that platform. A lot of great points of consideration for us in out of home throughout this entire conversation. Will does a really good job too of really kind of honing in on a couple of points and where offline media has impacted some of the brands that he's worked with, specifically what those results are. And again, just a lot of good things for us to think about as we're working with these sorts of brands scaling online. So without further ado, let's go.
Welcome everybody to the Out of Home Insider Show, a podcast like no other, hosted by the one and only Tim Rowe. Get ready to have some knowledge dropped on you and to be entertained, because nothing's more valuable than food for your brain. So sit back, relax, we're about to dive in as the best industry podcast is about to begin.
Will, this is going to be a fun conversation. We're going to talk about the connection of offline attention and e-commerce conversion. I was so excited when we connected, and just now in the lead up to the show, it turns out that we're old shipmates. So welcome aboard, shipmate. Will was in the Navy just before I joined the Marine Corps. So that was a fun little connection there in the opening. But that was part of your origin story of and how you got to what you're doing today. So maybe let's start there, Will. Let's start with your backstory. What'd you do in the Navy? How did it lead you to where you are today? And then we'll set a course for our journey.
Hell yeah. And shipmate, I haven't heard that in years. It takes me back. It's like I almost get tremors when I hear it, but kidding. Yeah. So I studied electricity. So worked on the boat in power generation and learned I'm actually a licensed electrician.
Oh, wow.
And I got out of the service and I got a job as a technician working on fuel cells. And I learned a lot about, anybody who does anything in engineering, it's like process and analysis and reprocess. I'm like, I pretty much got that bred into my fundamental existence from 18 when I joined to, 28 when I got out, and I was able to apply it to business essentially. But, long story short, did the military, got out, worked in the power industry, but also went to school full time. I was truly blessed, and you can appreciate this, Tim. Connecticut is a yellow ribbon state.
Sure.
Which means that private schools will honor the public pricing, and I could pretty much, as long as I get accepted, any school in Connecticut I can go to. So I was fortunate enough to get into Quinnipiac, which is a top
great school,
business school. I studied their entrepreneurship program, and I learned a lot about running a small business. And then from there, I left the comfortable six-figure job in the power industry to go make $10 an hour doing marketing at an agency. And I haven't looked back since then. I learned AdWords, SEO, PPC. That's kind of my bread and butter. And then work my way into just specifically marketplaces and Amazon. And then like anything else, I could do it better. We've learned processes. Our unique approach to delivering service to our customers is just around high touch service that delivers results. So we go for category domination is what we like to say.
Yeah, I love that.
That's a bit of my origin story and kind of how we got here today, Tim.
It makes sense because you're in the business of helping e-commerce brands scale, and help me out here. I think I'm going to get it right. Scaling from about 250,000 up to that $5 million range is sort of the sweet spot of brands that you work with, specifically e-commerce. So some of the audience might be wondering what's the connection here, and I'll paint the picture here quickly. Obviously, being in out of home or being in, the offline media space, we're really well known for driving online attention. So that's going to be the conversation we have here at large. But the process orientation of your career focus making the transition then from an electrical engineering type background into marketing, it makes a lot of sense because marketing is just that. It's systems, it's processes, it's hypotheses, testing, scaling. Once you find it, now just keep doing the thing and pouring more gas into the engine so it can go faster and faster. That first transition. So you're making good though. You go back to Quinnipiac and then you're like, okay, I'm going to go take a huge pay cut to go into this. What was it about marketing and advertising that the passion outweighed the profitability at that point?
I'm not 100% sure what specifically about e-commerce, but as I studied, I went in thinking I was going to do general management and kind of got in economics, but I met a professor who was an influence on me and, told me to study entrepreneurship. It's the best of everything. My father happened to run his own business, so I have entrepreneurial roots, so always trying to side hustle and stuff like that. And with marketing, it was just interesting because I've always been interested how to scale and sell. So with marketing, it was like that influence, the perfect cross between like psychology, art, and business. And that's what kind of drew me to it. So I grew up in school as a kid who liked art but wasn't very good at it. And also
same. Canva has made me a great artist.
Blessing. Oh my God, it's such a great tool.
Plug for Canva. Canva also loves out of home. Canva does a bunch of out of home, and they do a great job of it. But yeah, it's funny. I think that there's a lot of us that have probably found our way into advertising for a lot of those same reasons. A few different interests, some a little bit more, maybe defined and established than others, and then it's kind of this amalgam that we all end up loving and enjoying and appreciating. Yeah. So, okay. So that makes sense. Now we've gone from the Navy, we're into the advertising, but you focus very specifically, your company, Bellavix, you focus on a specific segment, and something that I'd like to maybe double click into and spend some time in today is how you've seen the landscape evolve over the last 6 to 9 months, what the challenges brands are having, so that we as offline media experts and consultants can help to advise these brands and understand some of what they're going through on the digital side. So specifically, maybe help us understand what it is that the company does and the types of brands you work with, and then we can open that up and go deeper there.
Yeah, so we're a performance-driven agency. So a lot of what I'm talking about is end of the funnel. Like a lot of what I'm graded on as an agency and why clients stay with us is like growth and sales. So a lot of our marketing and advertising activities are how do we scale it and how do we measure it? We're a turnkey operation when it comes to marketplaces. So we manage every aspect outside of physically handling inventory. Both anything that takes place in the dashboard, my team manages for Amazon and Walmart. Those are the two primary marketplaces we provide service to, and a majority of our clients are Amazon. And you hit it on the head earlier. Typically what we find is we're working with brands that are large enough to have a marketing department, and they're struggling with issues like MAP policy, enforcement, scaling sales. A lot of these brands hit a plateau. I feel like good brands can get to like $250,000 to $500,000 a year. Stellar brands internally can get to that like $1.2 million mark, but they all hit a point where they'll hit a plateau. And a lot of it will come down to the tools that they have available. As an agency and a certified advertising partner, I have a seat to their programmatic dashboard. I get access to beta programs. I have access to like people who work at Amazon will jump on calls to talk to clients. So like I just have access to more, and all we do is Amazon. So I'm not worried about your website. I'm not worried about branding. You bring that to the table. I'm just going to drive bottom line growth. So, a lot of those are the things and the types of businesses we work with. So they're coming in, we're laying the ground rules, and we're just helping them, build a funnel, build an audience, and drive growth. And the funnel is where the out-of-home marketing comes in too, because it's like, how do we get to a point where it's just impressions? It's like, wherever they're finding you, and then capturing them at some point mid-funnel, whether they're coming in through an advertisement, through a package insert, maybe they heard you on a radio commercial, like however they're discovering the brands and being able to track those whenever we're able to intercept them. The general website has their mechanisms to track and record that, and we have it on Amazon through Amazon attribution. And right now, which a lot of people, your audience may or may not be aware of, Amazon's offering a brand referral bonus program. So anybody who drives any type of traffic that's recordable off of Amazon to Amazon, and it leads to a sale, you get a discount on your fees, 10 to 15%. Not to mention you also get a sale from that effort. So they're really incentivizing, and us as an agency who works with these brands, driving off Amazon efforts, whether it's Google or search or package inserts or traditional direct mail marketing, like whatever is driving that awareness, the discovery, consideration and purchase is trackable, and Amazon's aware of that, and that's a differentiator that's going to drive massive growth compared to just sustainable 10 to 15% year over year you might with normal traditional efforts.
Because Amazon, obviously Amazon is a marketplace that we all know and love, and Walmart, I think a lot of people forget that Walmart has now surpassed Amazon as the leading global marketplace. Is that correct?
No, they
flip-flopped. Amazon just passed Walmart recently in the last few months.
Yeah, cumulatively, Walmart is, I think, larger in terms of like as a business. I think it's bigger than Amazon.
Okay.
But in terms of e-commerce, Amazon owns 50%, give or take, and Walmart's like 5%. But there's 4,700 Walmarts, 10 minutes
depending on how we're doing the math.
Distribution, yeah. So it depends how you look at it. Walmart is a bigger company, I believe.
I think that's the stat that I'm referring to, is just in terms of that overall. So, okay, I'm a brand and it makes sense, right? Because we all need a guy or a gal, right? And your thing is Amazon, and Amazon's its own beast into and of itself. It's its own ad platform in a lot of ways. And some of the things that you were just mentioning, these are all opportunities for brands to leverage within the Amazon ecosystem to continue to scale their brand. Help me understand and help the audience understand, well, how did they go from 0 to 250? Where do these brands usually get their start? Is it on their own website, and then they kind of realize, hey, I'm maxed out with the amount of traffic I can drive to my website, and I need to expand and find new reach, and that's how I end up on a marketplace? Is that generally the path that the brands travel?
I could give you so we don't specialize in this, but we get them once they get to that 250 point. And we do have launch brands we work with, but I'll give you 3 typical scenarios that I see for launches. So it's somebody who is going to launch, is going to be an Amazon focused brand. So they're going to use Amazon to test the product, to validate it. And then if they get the sales they want, they'll spin off a website and they'll grow the product line. The other way, it's inverse, is they focus on their website, they get sales, they realize there's a market for their product, and then they're like, okay, let's start doing Amazon, and they'll launch on Amazon and they'll do what they need to do. And then somebody who has investment, so somebody working with private equity or venture capital, it's a much different path because they have advertising dollars. So a lot of times they're going to come to the table to say, how do we get to this total sales at around this cost, essentially. But those are kind of the 3 buckets that we've seen actually come in and operate, launching on Amazon, like the scenarios essentially. And what I recommend when brands come to us, depending on the category, like if you're launching, I like to say this, if you're launching an anti-aging cream, like welcome to the club, everyone, I would say you probably should launch on the general web and validate it, because it's competitive on Amazon for that specific product. So do your research, test there is a market, but understand if it's saturated, you need to have something really special or unique about the product. That's at a price.
That makes sense. That I think that's good advice. So, all right, I've gotten to that level. I'm 250. I've got an internal marketing person. You mentioned there's some policy and there's some mechanic things that I need to be mindful of, right? I've built this great brand. I've got a following on a social platform. We're selling a bunch of the product that we've set out to sell. And now I want to go to the next level.
Yeah.
What is that? What is that first step on the journey to becoming a $5 million brand? I sit down with Will at Bellavix and I say, okay, help me get to $5 million. What are the things that we're doing first?
Yeah, great question. And I'd say at this point, you have some of like we have validation, we're ready to cook. And generally, there's two scenarios. One scenario is like we get ROAS, or return on investment driven brands. And this is more typical, like 80% of the time, it's like they want to grow. So the way we grow is we focus on the bottom of the funnel and work our way up with marketing and advertising activities. So I want to grow on Amazon and I want to get to $1.2 million by the end of this year. And we're going to, reverse engineer that essentially, but we'll be implementing things like people who have shown intent or in market, and we're going to advertise on the platform. We're going to make sure that the package inserts are driving reviews within Amazon's terms of service. We're going to leverage their advertising, probably mid to bottom of the funnel. And we're going to try to work at whatever return on ad spend we can maintain where they're profitable and kind of inch our way out. The more bandwidth we have on that, the faster that process. And that's the other side of that. What we see with companies generally working in private equity who have growth goals in order to get more money, they'll be a little more aggressive with how we spend, because at the end of the day too, based on the maturity of your product and where you fall in product maturity, it costs this much to acquire a customer. This is how much for eyeballs. This is what you guys are familiar with on the other side. This is how much it costs to drop them in the top. This is on average how much comes in the bottom. And it's just a slightly different scenario, and we would leverage different advertising and marketing solutions to kind of get the results on that end, and then track it to the best of our ability.
And Amazon's unique as a platform, because if we think about marketing over the last 2 years, or 2 years, if we think about the marketing over the last 10 years, I was going to say, I don't know what the hell I was going to say. I was going to say decade. I was going to say 2 decades, but it came out 2 years. But anyway, if you think about marketing over the last 2 years or last 2 decades, it's been weird either way.
Yeah.
But primarily over the last 2 decades, we've thought about Facebook and Google, and fundamentally they're different platforms, right? Google's really good at capturing intent. I'm typing things in, I'm looking for things specifically. Facebook really good at leveraging interest, and Amazon is unique because you have both of those factors at play, right? You have a lever to capture intent, and you also have a lever to also create interest. Talk about that. How is the Amazon ecosystem like a closed funnel itself? How do brands both capture intent and also create new reach and find new customers through branding via Amazon?
Yeah, I think I love you lined up this scenario, because I talk about this a lot when I talk to brands about programmatic advertising, and it's mainly where the Amazon customer lives. So you hit on head, Google's based on search intent. So, and generally what we find for higher priced items that require a lot of research, items that are changing lifestyle or behavior, they're going to be researched. They're going to come from communities. So you're going to want to make sure your marketing efforts are good around that. So the Google search is based on search behavior. Facebook is based on social engagement. So the communities you're a part of, and there's scenarios that fit that. Amazon is based on shopping data. Also, Amazon captures its own data. Google captures its own data. Facebook to some degree does too, but a lot of those rely on the iOS operating system to cooperate, where Amazon houses and owns a lot of that client data, where I'm not saying that it's not impact, but it's not as impacted as Facebook, which we've heard through the grapevine that cost per click, conversion rates, a lot of information has gone away or changed dramatically since the iOS update. So these are just some examples. So So what it means for us is that we have actual shopping data, actual customers showing intent because they're either engaging Amazon, they're engaging third-party marketplaces and suppliers, they're Amazon owned and operated properties, and it's mobile applications, it's on the web. It's pretty much, the interweb's all connected. So wherever you might see an ad, there's a supplier on the back end, and Amazon's tapping into that. But they were able to segment and organize their audiences better. So from like the bottom of the funnel working up, and if you decided you were going to work with us, like one of the basic things we set up is like your remarketing loop, which is like anybody who viewed your product but didn't make a purchase, and anybody who viewed your product but made a purchase in the last 7, 14, 30, 60, 90 days. And we just start building audiences. We prospect, the more gap we have, we can prospect based on intent, get more people who are searching for this, get more people who are viewing competitor pages but not making purchases. They're showing all these indicators that they have intent. And we just work our way up the funnel till eventually it's massive. We can scale faster, the wider this loop gets, the higher and the more marketing activities. Companies that engage a PR agency generally see like insane growth compared to companies that don't. And while it doesn't seem like it earns a lot of money, what we've seen with some of our smaller brands that are now scaling from that 5 or 6 million point to that 12, 15, 20 million dollar point is like they're engaging in media, they're getting a lot more SEO, they're getting a lot more audience driven engagement, and they're positioning their brand as authoritative in specific niches. So, and small sample size and completely based on my opinion, but it just goes to prove like if you can afford that and you can get that kind of mass appeal within niches, of course, you can see that type of scale.
It's fundamentally sound, and it's the core thesis of really what is the superpower of out of home, and that it is an instant credibility, trust, authority overnight. A billboard goes up and you are somebody, the same as and that's it. I've got Catalyst by Jonah Berger sitting over here somewhere, and it's a great book, and just the importance of word of mouth. I think I quoted a statistic on a recent podcast. I think something like 81% of Gen Z are most likely to make a purchase based on a friend's recommendation. 81%. Right. So advertising becomes more of a validation mechanism that, hey, the decision you're considering making or about to make or having just made was a good decision. You were wise for having done that, and you should buy some more of this stuff, and you should share it with your friends. Right. It's really to reinforce that. And I think that's a unique opportunity for brands now, but as walled gardens, as these walls get higher around ecosystems like Amazon, Apple now with their own DSP, we've obviously seen this kind of coming for a while. It's important to have a boat captain that knows how to navigate the Amazon. What are some of the challenges? What specifically are the things that don't often go well, or are the most common challenges in scaling on Amazon?
I'd say the first challenge a lot of like small as they transition to mid-sized retailers face is dealing with third-party sellers. And it may not be as relevant, but essentially is that they start wholesaling and they don't have MAP pricing in place. So
and that's minimum advertised price.
Yep, exactly.
But now I've got a bunch of people selling my product. I don't have minimum pricing standards. Now I've got a whole mess of trouble. I've got one guy advertising it for this, someone else advertising for that. And now the consumer's confused, and I could see how that becomes
diminishes brand. It makes it easy for products to be counterfeit. Some of the counterfeit stuff on marketplaces, I mean, it's terrible what other people do. That cause serious issues. So it's a problem. They've taken measures to mediate it, but it's just something brands have to be aware of. So I would say MAP pricing and learning, working with a good legal counsel and organizing your wholesale policies to include marketplaces and offline retailers. Because as you scale, as you get into more stores, as products go on clearance, they're going to flood into marketplaces. There's something called the buy box or the featured offer on Amazon. It's the little yellow add to cart button that 90% of people use to make a purchase. If somebody's offering a lower price or has a better seller rating on a product, you could be buying from that person. That person could be counterfeiting the product from overseas, or it could be a legit product. Something that they
Wow.
do is they commingle inventory. So a lot of times, if there's multiple sellers on some of these big brands, if you don't have specific specifications, they just dump it all in a box essentially, and they pull it out as needed. And based on who had the buy box, just gets the credit for the sale. They figured it's all the same product, and they do bin checks. They make sure it's not expired, so on and so forth. But if you're not careful, if you don't have MAP policy, that's how counterfeit gets in. And that's how it gets challenging to identify, like, of these 30 sellers who sell this product, who's the counterfeiter. So these are all,
Wow.
just speaking from experience, if we're talking about
Good
like the
things to know as
offline.
Amazon consumers too. That's just a helpful
That's the
buyer tip.
scary part. Your mom, your grandma, there's we work with a lot of beauty brands and supplement companies, so a lot of topical ingestible. And
Wow,
um
sure.
yeah, if you don't have I wouldn't buy from anybody who doesn't have the proper certifications listed.
That's well, you know what? There's a non-marketing pro tip that I think everyone
Yeah,
is
a
grateful
little
to
off
have
topic.
gotten. Dan Kennedy talks about there being two types of protections, marketplace protections and legal protections. And it was cool to hear you just kind of talk about both. And legal protections, obviously, that makes sense, having counsel and having these things, the T's crossed and I's dotted. But marketplace protections, that comes kind of into back to like this brand integrity idea
Yeah,
and creating that trust authority, right? And I think about a good friend of mine, Chris Mead at CrossNet, and they were actually one of our first out of home brands at OneScreen, and they've successfully scaled a great company, four-way backyard volleyball. If you've seen it, it's a
yeah.
great
Hey,
Amazon
we're
product.
connected, and so he's in my alma mater. I think
Get
we're in the
out of here! Oh
we're
yeah, he did.
graduating
That's right.
class
He's a
together.
Connecticut guy too. Yeah, that's right. He went to
Yeah.
Quinnipiac.
So man, we
That's
were
too
nested.
funny.
Crazy.
So Chris is a great front, and they've done a tremendous job of building a brand. And
Mhm.
I'll see the posts where they'll share a knockoff product, and Walmart's created their own like knocked off version of four-way volleyball, right? But they've created a brand. They were
Yeah.
intentional. Gosh, words at 2 o'clock in the
Yeah.
afternoon on a Tuesday. They were intentional about creating a brand because that gave them marketplace
Yeah.
protection. It's
Yeah.
not a silver bullet, but it does, I'm sure, thwart
Yeah.
a lot of that nefarious behavior and starts
Yeah.
to give you, more of that international platform once you're ready to get to those levels. So really interesting to just, to hear that that's such a challenge. Even for a technology company like Amazon, it's
Yeah.
nobody's, I suppose, safe from the counterfeits.
Yeah. If I could add one more challenge real quick, just
Yeah,
so,
please.
and this one's super short, but just to add, so I mean that the
Yeah, we
map
like
price,
the real shit.
but also like something else that always generally marketplaces are considered two ways. They're considered like the redheaded stepchild, unless it's making them a lot of money. Generally, it's neglected compared to other resources. And understanding, what we find is that a lot of clients may not give it the attention it deserves. So the brand experience is off, and especially if you don't monitor other sellers, you'll get poor reviews, so on and so forth on the actual product, which leads to a bad experience. So it's something that you should monitor and consider. If you let it get too out of control, it will affect the brand. 60% of people who buy products will go on Amazon and check reviews, whether they buy it from your website or anywhere else. So it is a popular resource. So it's important that you are mining these reviews, you're getting feedback. And even if there is a strategy out there where the brand pays to maintain the consistency of the brand, so the appeal and the aesthetics, but they let wholesalers own specific products or the brand on specific marketplaces, and they just provide that as a resource. So just to be aware of, because we might take over a brand that was left to the market, and what we'll find is just counterfeited, trolled, misused images, and it's it's a lot to clean up.
How do you parse out, because everyone's vying for their piece of the attribution pie, and obviously no one has a rightful claim to all of it except for the brand, because they've staked the financial risk to go out and sell the thing. In terms of cannibalization, though, do you see that happen when a brand starts to really get some scale on Amazon? Do you see cannibalization from the website or from the website from Amazon? Is there any sort of like inverse relationship between the website and Amazon that you've seen?
Cannibalization, great question, Tim.
Mm.
I don't believe that there is. Take it with whatever context you like, but the Amazon, as I mentioned, is part of the journey, whether you like it or not. So you may not have to put a ton, if you're a growing business and you only have so many resources and you decided that my focus is going to be my website for the time being, then hands off, and it is what it is, and it will be a poor experience till you get to the point where you can address it and set it up properly. At the end of the day, we're limited to how much time we have in a day sometimes. But it is something to consider, that the shopper now is an omni-channel shopper. They're experiencing brands, keyword experiencing brands, in offline and online ways that is spilling over, whether it's measurable or not. My wife and I still discover brands from billboards and magazines that come in, whether it's a local or destination or national. So it's just, that the measurability is going to continue to improve. And that's what's really interesting and exciting.
It's definitely exciting. This has been a very cool, I think, part one of a conversation I'd like to keep going. I'm so glad that we were able to get it on the record here. I think that the audience is definitely going to take a lot away from this. And as out of home continues to get more traction with born online brands that are reaching that level of scale where they've spent as much as we can online, now they're at a point of diminishing returns, or we want to leverage a growth channel, because we just heard from Will that, hey, offline media, when combined with this stuff, it's the juice. And if you can find that 1-2 punch, it's a great opportunity. So, Will, can't thank you enough for being here.
Thanks for having me, Tim. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Give them the lat long. How do they get in touch? Where do they find you? Where's the best place to follow, connect with you online?
Excellent. Yeah. So check out our website, bellavix.com. My name's Will Haire, like on your head, Haire. And check me out on LinkedIn. I post pretty regularly on news and updates on how it affects sellers. So if nothing else, I could be a resource for changes that may be impacting your account. And outside of that, you can always shoot me an email, and the email's on the website.
Got to be scanning downfield so that we can advise brands to the best of our ability. Well, thank you so much. We'll make sure to link to all those places so that everyone can connect really easily.
Awesome. Thanks again, Tim.
If you found this to be helpful, please share it with somebody who could benefit. As always, make sure to smash that subscribe button, and we'll see y'all next time.
Quarter century, I finally came to my senses. I finally got my hand up on the tinted Benz, kid. I see the world clear through my tinted lenses. With the dream and the drive, the possibilities endless. Now print that, send this all the way to Tokyo. Take a trip down south, down to Mexico. Next stop, Shanghai, the world-class trade show. First class all the way, cause that's how we roll. Yeah, call us the rock star businessman. Rockin' shows we handle business, man. We got our own future in the palm.